been one of the great rivalries in college football, and this is the weekend. Florida State and Miami get together, both play in the ACC. They do it each and every year, and whether it means a lot in the standings, it means a whole lot to the state of Florida. We got Big Game James on the line. You can catch him on fifth quarter college football. James, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Halloween. And then tomorrow, Florida gets to enter fall for a few days.
For a few days.
Yeah, we get the 60s. Like
60s for a few days. Okay. Well, it's in the 60s here. We're just trying to hang on to some kind of late summer, early fall, whatever you want to call it, in Connecticut. But I'll take the 60s here. But I know that's a reprieve for you guys. All right. You've got, as I mention all the time when I bring James on, and unfortunately we haven't been able to connect for a long time, but he's got perspective that nobody else has. Joining us from the car, so we've just got the audio going. But perspective because he was a big college football fan, Florida State fan, went to Florida State, played fullback there, played on some really good teams under Bobby Bowden, 2 to 5, right?
Yep.
And then now he covers the team, covers college football in the ACC, also the NFL with Jacksonville. So, James, when you think about this rivalry, what makes it stand out? What makes it different and unique for you?
Really, this is something that, a lot of people don't know because I went to high school and middle school essentially in the South, in Tallahassee. But my family is from the Northeast. So the Trenton, New Jersey area. And, more NFL football. So my great uncles, my grandmother is a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. Actually, anything Philly. They pretty much cover all of that. So, obviously, no offense to that area. Not really big college football there besides your Boston College or Rutgers, but they really weren't that good, like especially when I was growing up. But we would always watch TV as a family. I would remember in the November time frames, the bowl games, you would catch on ABC, you would catch the FSU games or you'll catch the Miami games. And it was just something about the way that those guys played football that registered for me, a kid who kind of grew up in the inner city. And like the way they played the gold teeth, the swag, the trash talking, the backflips in the end zones. And when these two guys got a chance to play each other, I just said when I was young, if I ever played football, I want to play for those two teams. And then when we got down to Florida and I spent most of my time here, it was just the same. It was everything. Florida State was cracking. That was during the height of the dynasty years. FAMU, Florida A&M was really good then, and Miami was off and on good. But it was just the names that came out were a who's who. And in my mind, I was like, if I'm good enough to play for one of those teams, I know I'm gonna go to the NFL, and I also know I'll be immortalized by the fan base. And it just again, and then just to see the Bobby Bowden with the starter jacket and the old man swag, and you see Snellenberger during those times, you see Jimmy Johnson, you see just the coaches that came from, well, Florida State obviously having a one stoic, iconic coach, Miami having quite a few along with the players. It just made you want to be a part of that rivalry.
So, James, it drew you in from afar, and then you got to experience it like few do. So take us in the inner sanctum in regards to when it was Florida State Miami week, and for you, Miami week, what was talked about that was different than another ACC team? What was talked about in the locker room? How did you prepare differently? And when you stepped on the field, what made it different?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because people are making me relive it now. I guess ESPNU is playing the old games, and I got a bunch of people tweeting me saying that, wow, that was you without dreads. and you weren't smiling. Like I'm like, oh yeah, man, that was a whole lifetime ago.
Yeah.
When we played the first two times I played Miami, first three times because we played them twice in 03, they were a part of the Big East, so they weren't.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yet. 04 and in 05 is when it came. So my freshman year, it was a different week, and it's what happens is the old guys talk to you about the rivalry. They talk to you about what to expect and things like how the year is going to go, right? So we're in full pads. Like it used to be like the 5th game of the season or something like that. So you're in full pads up to that, and they're like, hey, if we beat Miami, practices are easy after that. Like we're going shorts. Like we're no longer hitting anybody anymore. If we don't, then we'll hit people. We'll bang a little bit longer, but that's kind of what the guys were telling you. And then it's just you're going into it, uh, like knowing, and your coaches are telling you like this is what's going to happen. So you're hearing the fight song, you're hearing, you're going a little harder, you're banging a little bit harder because you want to win this, not just for the rivalry's sake. Most of us went on recruiting visits together. We might have played with each other. Like we know each other. We're going to see each other in the off season when we go back home. We had a good contingent of people from Miami that played at FSU. Your Brian McFadden's, your Stanford Samuels, juniors, your what was black, Jarrell Hudson. You had a lot of guys from that Miami area. So when they went back home on breaks, you lose this game, they're going to hear about it. So you don't want to hear about their loss, even though we lost four out of 5 times that I played. I like to say we were 1-0 when it mattered, though, in 05.
You get my college football predictions at the Voice of College Football Community. Just go to the link in the description section below, including, of course, my call on Florida State Miami. But that link is about a whole lot more than the predictions. Join our community. You get an exclusive live stream with me each and every week. All right, Big Gabe James is on the line from Fifth Quarter College Football. James, we talked a ton during the offseason, then we didn't get a chance to track you down, I don't think, since Florida State stepped on the field against Boise State. So you really set us up for the season. Now we haven't talked to you, so talk a little bit about Kendall Broyles, the offense, what you expected versus what you've seen.
What I expected was a more explosive offense consistently, and the definition of lethal simplicity. We haven't quite got that yet, and a lot of it, I believe, has to do with personnel and egos, and personnel, egos, and the fact that everybody doesn't play that system in the ACC. So you have to be more balanced in your system, and I believe Kendall Broyles still has the ability, excuse me, to be a great offensive coordinator. I just think he has to humble himself a little bit if he wants to be in the big time. So while you do want to have all gas, no brakes, and that be a portion of your offense, you have to have the ability to be able to slow down, throttle it down, and run a 4-minute offense or situational offense. In the ACC, what we found out, well, actually even before that, when we played teams that are better, your Boise States who are still ranked, your Virginias, your who have a really good defensive-minded coach in Bronco Mendenhall, your it's a ton of coaches that know how to effectively stop an offense. What happens is when you go 3 and out and you're going all gas, no brakes, eventually the other offense gets an opportunity to catch up. And when you look at the FSU losses outside of Clemson, that's really what it comes down to. If you look at the Boise game, if that last drive, if they're able to throttle it down, take time off the clock, you're going to be able to wear down that Boise defense a little bit more. You open the drive off in the first half. If you're throttling it down using Cam Akers, who's one of the more dynamic running backs in the nation, you're utilizing him more. You're going to be able to do more. And I get it. You want to go out there and your identity is to throw the ball or really make big plays. You also have to do it's not to protect your defense as much as it is to take away the opportunities of the other offense. But Boise, Virginia, even when you saw us go back and forth with Louisville, we tried to do it a little bit against Wake Forest, but we didn't score we didn't take advantage of the many opportunities that our defense gave us. So that's really, I would say, people want to kind of merge 18 and 19 together, but I see an improvement in 19. It's just they don't have the ability to finish, and I think that comes down with guys who are still trying to buy in, or maybe you just don't have as talented guys as you want. But I do believe that if Kendall Broyles is able to stick around and continue to redevelop or constantly hone his craft, he can be one of the great offensive minds in college football and leverage that into into a super big Power 5 school.
So I totally agree with that, James. I've been saying that since about the third or fourth week of the season. The second half against Boise State was obviously a debacle, and the Louisiana Monroe game. But since then, this hasn't been the 2018 team. This hasn't been Florida State, but this hasn't been the 2018 team. They're not. They look prepared. They look competitive. They're in the games. They only played like 3 decent games last year, and other than that, they just looked unprepared and didn't look like they really had a good plan and they couldn't execute.
Not to cut you off, but even to go
Yep.
on that, at this point, like right now, you can look at FSU's schedule and you can see you can see them should be 7-1. Last year, you couldn't see that. Like the games we won, you're like, we probably should have lost those. Like, so I mean,
Yeah.
that's a difference in of itself.
You mentioned the name Cam Akers. I forgot how good this guy was. It just lost in the marginal play by the offensive line to be kind last year. I just forgot how good this guy was, and I missed the Boise State game because it was taken off the main network. I really wanted to see that game, so I missed that one. And then they played a couple lower level teams, and then I really didn't catch up with Florida State football until about week 3, week 4, and I've caught every game since, even if I've watched it in a condensed version. And watching him run against Wake Forest and Virginia, just on down the line against everybody, I forgot how good this guy was. He's making guys miss in the backfield even when he doesn't have the blocking, and he is tearing it up.
He's definitely got better, more patient. His second level vision still isn't where Dalvin Cook's is, but that's also comparing him to a great.
Yep.
But he's definitely doing very well, and what he does in the passing game is exceptional as well. What's really good, more so from a college perspective, you won't really be able to use it in the NFL, is what we saw last week against Syracuse, a heavy dose of what they call the wild cam. He might be the best quarterback on FSU's roster. And it could be, like I was telling people, they're like, well, what does this mean? So it could just be really good strategic marketing that that Willie Taggart and Kendall Broyles are doing to kind of maybe show like a couple guys that probably will be like Joey Gatewood just entered the portal. He's not coming to FSU fans. I know Joey. Just trust and believe. I'm gonna try to market for it, but I doubt it. Or you have De'Aaron King out of Houston, who Kendall Broyles has a really good relationship with. But you see what happens when you have an athletic quarterback with a strong arm that can put the ball where it's supposed to be at, how this offense looks. And they ran about two to three series of the wild cam, and it completely changed the whole dynamic of that Syracuse game.
Got Big Game James on the line from Fifth Quarter College Football. Join him on Twitter, and then you can follow him on all the various platforms that he's available, and covers the NFL, Jacksonville Jaguars. Is that where you're headed right now to cover some NFL?
No, actually it's Halloween, so we're gonna record my radio show, Sports Day Live. We're gonna record it earlier. We normally do it live, obviously, and then I'm gonna go trick or treating with the kids. But this weekend, London is cool and all.
Oh, that's right.
But I got to go to Tallahassee for FSU Miami. I got to be there.
That's right. Yeah, Texans Jags over there. All right, James. You mentioned the quarterback situation. The level of play is about the same between the two, in my estimation. I'm going to get the expert's opinion, but I struggled with this one leading into the opener just because I thought Blackman, of course, was in the system for so long that he would be the guy. But in terms of level of play, I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference there, but although their skill sets are somewhat different. So who should be starting and who will be starting against Miami?
It'll be Alex Hornibrook, but I think you'll probably see both of them. FSU fans have made this into something what it shouldn't be. You want the best quarterback on the field, the one who's going to win. And Hornibrook has his strengths, but he also has his major flaws. Same thing with Blackman. Hornibrook, the thing that Hornibrook has over Blackman is a poise. It's the poise that you would think a fifth-year senior has over a guy because he just played more games. In particular, he's played in bigger games being at Wisconsin. So when he makes a play, he doesn't watch. I think Blackman sometimes gets too caught up in the emotions of the game, and he's not stoic enough to where he can just forget and keep moving forward. The problem is Hornibrook's arm is a huge liability. Now, he could sometimes make a better decision and throw it where it needs to throw, but the ball hangs too much. and he can't throw it deep. And against Miami, who has very athletic DBs, that's like those are points waiting to happen. So you have to hope that you can get your running game going, and that Hornibrook is able to do enough and be more accurate. He was not accurate enough against Syracuse. Some of it had to do with drops, and I think that's really when people look at what's wrong with Blackman. Blackman's ability to throw the ball deep and throw it is good. His problem is that I don't know if he's not throwing a catchable ball or what happens, but he targets Tamarind Terry way more than what Hornibrook does. But Terry has a lot of drops that have also helped make drives stall or prevented us from making touchdowns. So what you got, and also the other thing that Hornibrook does a better job of than Blackman is get the tight ends involved. So that's kind of what has to, when you have a quarterback who doesn't have a strong arm and you know they're going to load it up 8 in the box, you got to get Trey McKitty and Cam McDonald and Gabe Neighbors more involved in the passing game. And I think that's how you keep this Miami defense very honest, because while Pickney and Shaq on Quarterman are extremely good downhill linebackers, where they struggle at is in coverage. So you've got to be able to get those guys in those matchups.
Big game, James on the line. James Coleman from Fifth Quarter College Football, also Sports Den Lives, his podcast. He's going to tape it right now, so catch him on Twitter. You can follow him on his various platforms covering Florida State, college football, and the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. James, when you look at the defense, statistically, it was one of the worst in the ACC for most of the season. I'm thinking about the Wake Forest game and its ability to stop Wake in the red zone consistently, and that's one of the better passing games and maybe the second best offense in the conference. So they've been playing better as of late. What stands out as what makes you feel good about the defense, and where are you disappointed?
What makes me feel good about the defense is what happened when Levitt came over, and I guess a guy who has a better understanding of the subtle nuances of the 3-4.
Yep.
And he's able to get the defense in good positions, and guys are making plays. The especially when you've got a headline from your front four with guys like Cooper, Durden, and really Marvin Wilson. Like, that's really where the push comes, and those guys have got to continue to get pressures. But bigger than that, with the Jaron Williams possibly starting, you got to turn those pressures into sacks. The issue comes in is that they don't have a consistent pass rush off the edge. So now you can see where we're not having a Brian Burns really has that effect, and not having consistent play from Janoris Robinson. You got to have that come off. The guys like that got to play better. So that's also throwing Amari Gaynor in that mix. So when you've got guys, the defense is able to get the pressure and get to the quarterback, you see everything else is better prepared. I joke with people saying, watching FSU and covering the Jags primarily, it's like I'm watching the same thing on Saturday and Sunday. When they're able to get a pass rush, the weakness of Florida State is their linebackers. So that pass rush or that dominant D-line play makes your linebacker play increase exponentially. Also, when you cut down the ability and the comfortability of a quarterback in the pocket, it makes your DBs, who are athletic, who have talent, makes them play better. So if you can make Jaron Williams, whose specialty in strength is getting rid of the ball quick, if you can make it quick and short, then you've got a really good opportunity to just make them dink and dunk, and force them into third and long situations. So if they're in third and long and those guys can pin their earbacks and get to the quarterback, I think FSU has a really, really good chance to be able to get a lot of sacks.
Well, James, we talked about your experience at Florida State being unique, something that 99.0% of us don't get to experience. And then you get a taste of that when you go back for the game and you get the pats on the back and you can tell the old stories and hook up with a lot of people and connect. And so it's probably a really good time, not just watching the game, but the whole weekend for you.
Oh, yeah, man, I can't wait. We're throwing a tailgate with a bunch of Miami legends and some FSU legends. It'll be good fellowship. Because the game means something, it always means something, but it's not what it used to be. So we figured we might as well just have a family reunion style thing where we all lie about how good we used to be, and we just try to have a good time. That's really the biggest thing, and hopefully FSU comes out with a victory, because I believe for Tag, he needs some of these these wins like this. Obviously a win over a rival. Tons of recruits will be there, and people are trying to figure out who's going to control the pace of the state of Florida. And right now, UF has a marked advantage right now because Mullen has those guys playing extremely well. And right now, it's about who's going to be number 2, moving in and moving forward for a few years. And I think if FSU comes out and puts on a good show, they have a good job.
So, James, you led me right into it, and it's a good point. Looking toward the future, take off the garnet and gold. Do you have legitimate hope for this program getting back to where it's supposed to be?
I do. I just have tag might not be it, and I'm willing. You know, I tell people that all the time. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. People have missed. We haven't had a coaching. That was our first coaching search. But what I do know is historically, when I look at what Michigan's done, what Nebraska's done, what USC has done, what LSU has done, what Alabama did until Saban got there, what Florida has done, what pretty much if you go in Nebraska, when you look at the traditional powers, the guys who have been in the top 25, let's say the last 25, 30 years, the reason why you have the guys who have won the national championships or have been in the picture are the ones who have stability in their coaching ranks. Like, if you fire a guy after 2 years and you hire somebody, all you're doing is hiring a guy who inherited the problems from the 2 coaches before, as well as the problems of the previous coach. So it's a saying in coaching: if you fire quick to hire, all you're doing is setting up for the next coach. Like, so again, you'll have, and that's when I look at Florida and the mistakes that they've made. Now it looks like they did like Muschamp and McElwain didn't do as bad in recruiting as people thought. Their years that they went 4-8 and 4-7, there were a lot of injuries that had to play into that, and the personalities just didn't fit. And I'm willing to concede in that. But when I look at what Clemson did when they were ready to fire Dabo, and I look at what LSU did when they were ready to fire Coach Orgeron, instead of firing, which is expensive, what they did was they invested in the coordinator positions to make which both of those coaches were weak, to make them stronger so that those coaches can focus on what they're good at, which is recruiting. So FSU kind of did that a little bit with Kendall Broyles on this side. They got to make that same move on defense. Or LSU and Clemson, if I'm correct, have almost $5 million committed to the coordinator position, not to the assistant coaches positions, but to the coordinator positions. I think it's like 1.25 for both the co-offensive coordinators, and I believe the defensive coordinator at Clemson makes about 2.5 to 2.75 million. Yep. So that's a lot of money. When you put that, that's head coaches. So you've got 3 head coaches, and if you look at it from a business perspective, what that is: CEO and 2 executive vice presidents who are over the branches. And what the head coach can do is coach the executive vice presidents, make sure that they're doing, and what you do is you make sure that everything else is, you recruit the best talent, and they keep those guys, they're committed. FSU's recruiting class is strong with a whole bunch of stuff looming around whether Coach Taggart's going to be here or not. Imagine how much stronger it would be, obviously with the wins, but imagine how much stronger it would be if the university really just went on ahead and made a strong stance, saying this is going to be our guy at least through 2020.
Yeah, it's a great point. You just ran through about 5 to 10 blue bloods who all have had coaching carousels, and they haven't been what they're supposed to be. And then again, Alabama, Nick Saban, 2007. So it's been 12 years. Dabo's been around for 10 or 11.
Choice.
Yeah. Ohio State, Oklahoma have had 1 or 2 coaches for 20 plus years. There you go. All right, big game, James Coleman. You have a great trip to Tallahassee. Have a big time. Enjoy the game.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Mark. Hopefully we can get me this thing slowed down. We can get me on a little bit more.
Absolutely. You are welcome anytime. You know that.
All right, man.
Thanks, James.